and they're a temptation, I have to keep resisting the devil.
But I don't think it's necessarily always pleasing, because as a teenager, there's a temptation to drink or smoke or party every weekend, and that's not necessarily what looks pleasing to me, but it's still a temptation because it's what everyone else is doing.
Hey everyone, I'm KK the PK!
And I'm Pastor Chad.
I don't say Pastor Chad.
True.
I say, go ahead, do it.
Hey everyone, I'm Chad Hensley. I'm a Jesus follower, and I am the pastor at Henderson General Baptist Church.
And I'm KK the PK!
And today we are doing Driven Part 2.
Part 2, how to, inspirational humor, how to be driven. And at the end of last week, KK, the PK, said this question.
Who or what is driving you?
And I went, ooh, that was a good question. It really was a good question. And it's one that I want us to think about today. So we're going to have 4 things on how we know or how we allow God to be the one driving us. So here's what I know. There's a song out there. Jesus, take the wheel. Take it from my hand. Hey, when she's driving, sometimes I go, give me the wheel for the love of all that's good.
When's the last time you rode with me?
There's a reason for that. I mean, I don't know. By the time Grace gets old enough to be able to drive, I don't know that I'm going to be able to manage.
Yeah.
You're going to have to teach her how to do it. But now you've got a wheel on the wheel.
True that.
Yeah, so it helps you to be able to back up, right? So it's on here like this. It's a special one that comes on and off, but it's there for you to be able to use, right? We kind of talked about that. So here's what we want to do. We want to give you 4 things on how to be driven by God, because ultimately someone or something is driving you. And all too often, we allow the wrong things to drive us. If you want Jesus taking the wheel and driving you, then here's what we do. We look at James chapter 4, verse 7, that reads this. So humble yourselves before God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. In verse 8, come close to God, and God will come close to you. Wash your hands, you sinners. Purify your hearts, for your loyalty is divided between God and the world. So, before we get to the 4 things, which are there in those verses, I want you to ask yourself this question. Who are you loyal to? Is it to God or the things of this earth?
And notice he says things. It can be more than one thing.
It can be.
It's not necessarily always just one person if it's not Jesus.
If it's not him, it can be multiple things. And oftentimes we get in different vehicles trying to get different aspects of our lives to feel good about ourselves, and we end up going down the wrong road. So ultimately, number 1, if we're going to be driven by God, what do we have to do?
Stay humble.
Humble. And who do we?
Stay humble.
Yes. Or, oh Lord, it's hard to be humble.
That's a real
when
song.
You're perfect in every way.
Okay.
I can't wait to look in the mirror.
Maybe we should go back.
'Cause I get better looking each
Stop
day.
and look around at the crossroads. You go back to last week. Stop.
Yeah, it's not that kind of humble. It's humble your life before God, realizing that you need a Savior.
And that ultimately you can be happy with things in this earth, but you'll never find pure joy in things like money or whatever else it is. You know, money, a hobby, anything.
Yeah, you're always going to want more. You're always going to need more. So to humble yourself before God means that I cannot do it on my own. And yes, I promise you this. in my life, I humble myself before God, because oftentimes we start elevating in ourselves. And if I'm going to allow God to be the driver of my life, then I have to humble Him, which means He's going to say, hey, go left when you want to go right. He's going to say stop when you want to go. And He's going to say go when you want to stop. Why? Because He is in charge.
It's funny, we always play, or I say we always. As a kid, I always played Simon Says. And if Simon said go, I went. And if Simon didn't say go, I didn't go.
Yep.
And now that I'm older, it's like I don't want to follow God even though God says go. So if God says go, I need to go. Even though He's not Simon.
He's not Simon.
He's still God.
Yes. So we humble ourselves before God. Number 2.
Resist.
Yeah, resist who? Dad.
The
Dad, and everything He says to do.
I had to think about it.
Yes, we resist the devil. Why? What is the devil doing in and through your life that we have to resist?
He's ultimately trying to steal, kill, and destroy.
Yeah, and he does that through temptation. He's always going to tempt us. And is temptation always something that looks pleasing?
Not necessarily.
Well, to me it is. It's called most of Oreo cookies.
I don't know.
It's a temptation of mine because I've had these for a long time, and I get to eat them when we reach 1,000 subscribers. And I know we always wait to the end, and you don't watch to the end, and you're not subscribing, and I can't eat these things, and they're a temptation. I have to keep resisting the devil.
But I don't think it's necessarily always pleasing, because as a teenager, there's a temptation to drink or smoke or party every weekend, and that's not necessarily what looks pleasing to me, but it's still a temptation because it's what everyone else is doing.
Because you want to be a part of the crowd, right? Yeah. And who's going to drive your car? Who's going to drive your life? The only way we're going to allow God to do it is to allow allow myself to be humbled before God, to resist the devil. And when I resist the devil, he will flee. But I have to resist, and sometimes they just keep coming and they sit right there on my shoulder.
It's like the little devil and the little angel.
It is, and it's like, oh, I'm so delicious and nutritious. But it's not nutritious, but it's really delicious, right? I would guess, but I've never eaten most stuffed. The third thing that we do through this is that we come close to God. And here's my question to you, and I think it's important. It comes from the message from Sunday morning, and I come to you again in this point. How are you growing closer to God in your relationship? See, I can give you all kinds of how-tos and all that, but it really boils down to what are you doing on a daily basis, every day of your life to come closer to God. It is through reading His Word. It's praying. It's through watching devotions like this.
Being around other believers with precautions.
Precautions at this point. And then number 4, you have to wash your hands. But it's not.
Enough said.
Yeah, I mean, I know we do need to wash our hands these days. We need to use hand sanitizer. We need to do all that for 20 seconds. But ultimately, what it's saying is wash your hands, purify your hearts.
They are filthy.
Yeah. Well,
filthy.
The reality is what He wants you to do is to take the sin in your life and say, I need to stop it, because sin makes us dirty, not on the outside, but on the inside.
So I hear people sometimes say, like, he or she has a really pure soul. I've heard people say that before.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if someone were talking about your soul, would they say they have a filthy soul? Or would they say they have a pure soul? They have God in their heart, so they've got a good soul.
See, I remember back in the day. Go ahead.
I was going to say, what's the one verse that says, like, trust in the Lord with all your heart?
Lean not in your own understanding.
No, I was going to say, no, not trust in the Lord. I was going to say, like, with all your mind, strength.
Oh, yeah. Love the Lord with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Yeah. So you have to do that. And I remember one day, I was a kid. I was probably 7 years old, 6 years old. And I remember my cousin, he said something. And I remember back then, see, they had bars of soap. And boy, whenever you'd say a bad word, The soap bar would go in there, and these bubbles would come out. You can't do that these days. But I know this. I said, I don't even know what that word means. I'm not saying it. And I don't even remember what the word was. It's not in my vocabulary. Because ultimately, I know this. Dirtiness is not what's on the outside. It's what's on the inside.
I remember, tell him about the time whenever Bradley came home thinking he heard a bad word at school.
He thought he heard a bad word at school. I said, what did the word start with? He said, S. And I said, okay, Bradley, go ahead and tell me what that word was. And he goes, that person said, shut up.
He was
And I go, ooh, you don't say that word, because we're not supposed to say that word. So here's the 4 things. If you want to be driven by God, humble yourself before God. Resist the devil and his temptations.
Come closer to God.
Come closer to God. How are you doing that?
And wash your hands.
Wash your life with God, knowing that he loves you. Hey guys, go conquer your day and go conquer your life.
Like, subscribe, and share with your friends. And we will see you guys next time.
Yes! Should I have washed my hands before this?
Probably.
I mean, they're kind of grummy right now.
I guess I should just go drive off now.
Drive. See you guys.